Big tech are getting what's coming to them as Trump announces class action lawsuits, while simultaneously over 1 million users have joined the free speech platform Gettr. After feasting on the fruits of American freedom while simultaneously trampling on it, will these technocrats finally get a taste of the tyranny of the masses? Join me today to find out what's coming next and how you can help. Welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse, coming to you live from the heart of America, Columbus, Ohio. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. It's so good to see you, as usual. It makes my week every time I hop on here and interact with you folks. I really appreciate all the support you've brought. Just a quick reminder before I jump into things to make sure you're subscribed if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, I also can encourage you to check out the live stream over on Rumble, where they're not going to be censoring anybody, as we're seeing on today's topic, how heavy the censorship is. But Patriots are fighting back. Just a quick reminder, too, to make sure you hit the little notification bell to just make sure that you get notified, which hopefully YouTube's notifying you. I think most people aren't getting notified, but let's hope that they are. And maybe with Trump stirring some things up, we start seeing a little more support from these communist-controlled platforms. So jumping into today's topic, I'm not sure if you saw the big news yesterday about President Trump coming out. And this is pretty significant news. And I'll take a step back and talk about what I think the importance of big tech is. There's a lot of folks, it's very obvious that you're probably thinking that, okay, we have big tech, we have the mainstream media, we've got all these things to attack. In my opinion, though, the biggest battle for us to fight is with big tech, big tech. Because if you look at the control over the narrative they have, let's say that CNN is publishing their normal, great, unbiased news with Mr. Potato Head. If that news isn't being flooded on big tech, on the social media, or if you're trying to look at what's happening with the subject, which, for instance, I was doing some research on Gettr in preparation for this show, the new social media platform by Jason Miller. And as I'm researching, all I'm finding is negative content from all the mainstream media, which Google certainly has a hand in that. So big tech, I believe, is the most fundamental thing that's really changing the narrative and controlling the narrative, even bigger than the mainstream media. Because what would happen if you did a search for something on Google and it showed you the Epoch Times or Breitbart? Or more importantly, what would happen if your, say, liberal friend was doing some research on President Trump or Joe Biden, and they went to Google, which most people still go to Google, even people that I think maybe already know it's censored, but especially people that don't understand that. They think that whatever Google serves up is actually the truth. So what happens when folks go to Google and they start searching for something and all they see is Snopes, debunked, fact check, CNN, etc. So again, I think that big tech is one of the biggest mountains for us to climb to get over this and to start making some headway into getting more people the truth. So Trump's lawsuits yesterday are very, very significant. And I'm also going to, as I mentioned, I will share my thoughts. I've done a lot of research into Gettr, and I'm going to be sharing my thoughts with you in the second half of today's show. Also, today's show will be a little bit shorter than normal, maybe around half an hour or so. We had a little technical glitch on Tuesday, and yesterday we had the big show on critical race theory, which had to put a lot of focus on that. So if you haven't checked that out, yesterday's show is very important because what's happening in the schools with children, that's again one of the big areas we have to be fighting and pushing forward on. So it's called The War on Our Children is what the thumbnail is. So check that out after this if you want to check that out. So also a quick reminder is that all the links I'll be talking about on today's show, I'm putting below in the description for the video. If they're not there, I'm pretty sure I put them in, but if they're not there, I'll do it immediately afterwards. So anything I'm referencing, you can check it out there. So let's dive into what's happening with Trump's lawsuit. I wanted to find an article that was really comprehensive in showing what's really happening, what it means. And again, if you, as I mentioned before with the censorship of Google, if you look at, I was doing some search, looking at, and I was actually using DuckDuckGo, but again, looking for information about Trump's lawsuit, all that you see coming up is all the mainstream media, all the mouthpieces that are completely just dumping all over Trump's lawsuit, which shows me, for one thing, that they're scared of it. And again, as I've talked about before, I always look to the mainstream media to see what they're freaking out about, because they usually show us where to be looking at things. So I did find a good article from the Daily Mail, which I'll be getting into. I'm going to read a handful of the information here for you, so you can see. I'll make it full screen so you can follow along. Make myself disappear. Okay, well, should have, but anyway. Okay, so Trump files a class action lawsuit against Facebook, Twitter, and Google for censoring him, demands an end to big tech silencing and blacklisting of conservative voices, and calls for punitive damages for cancel culture victims. So Trump launched the legal battle against social media giants at his Bedminster Club in New Jersey, I believe. He demanded punitive damages up to trillions of dollars. Trump he goes big. He doesn't go with things halfway. He goes big. Okay, so up to trillions of dollars from Facebook, Twitter, and Google. He's still banned. Now they're claiming that he's still banned because of the Capitol riots, which we're seeing all kinds of just bogus stories coming out about that, the whole narrative. And he claims the posts that got him banned were innocuous, while terror groups Hamas and other terror groups are still active on there. Okay. Now, what his lawyers are saying, and this is the key point about this, the lawyers are saying that the platforms acted as government agents, and so were subject to free speech projections. So this is an important point I'm going to make here. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, you can't sue. It's First Amendment." They're saying they've got Section 230, but as I understand it, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't like a lot of law. To be honest, I don't like digging into the lawyer stuff. But as I understand this, what his lawsuit is really based around the fact of proving that these technology companies, say Google, Facebook, and Twitter, were working on behalf of the government. So Section 230 gives them a security about having lawsuits or about being brought down, but it protects them. Section 230 protects these big tech companies, saying that they're able to allow people to do this, and they can have certain moderation of what's on their website. But if it can be proved that these companies are actually working as agents of the government, then they are no longer protected by Section 230, and that's what the lawsuit is hinging around that. Because think about it: how many of your friends that you know are liberal have been kicked off of Facebook? How many of them have been kicked off of YouTube? How many Democrat politicians have been kicked off of YouTube or Twitter? Very, very few. So do you think that it's a coincidence that I'd probably guess 99% of the people that have been censored are voices that are conservative, that are Republican, that are basically not on the left side of things? So there's probably stacks and stacks of evidence to go up against this and paint the picture that, yes, these companies are targeting a certain political group, which, if you look at Biden being in the White House and some of the things that we're seeing, that there's phone calls that have been leaked. I know that Project Veritas has covered this, that are showing that even certain politicians are requesting videos be taken off of YouTube. You start to paint the picture that these companies are acting on behalf of the government, which, as much as everyone wanted to call Trump a fascist, fascism is when you have the merger of government and corporations to take over the citizens. And so, as much as everyone, again, Saul Alinsky, accuse your opponent of what you yourself are doing, they love calling Trump a fascist. But isn't that what we're currently seeing here? Are we currently seeing that the big tech, these giant monopolies, are becoming mouthpieces for the mainstream media, mouthpieces for the government, the Biden administration? I'd say so. So digging back into this article, I'll read a little about it. So former President Trump announced on Wednesday he was launching a class action lawsuit against Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, and Google CEO Sundar Pichai on behalf of victims of cancel culture. So he's not just suing the companies, he is suing the CEOs of the companies as well, which is interesting. He demanded the end of shadow banning and blacklisting as he stood in the blazing sun using his Bedminster golf course clubhouse as a backdrop. In addition, quote, we are asking the court to impose punitive damages on these social media giants. We're going to hold big tech very accountable. Trump will serve as the lead plaintiff in the suit, claiming he has been wrongfully censored. Now, here's the point I was making. His lawyers say they will argue that Congress has frequently pressured big tech to take action on conservatives, making them agents of government and therefore subject to the First Amendment. The legal moves are backed by the America First Policy Institute, a nonprofit that includes several former senior Trump officials. All right, let me scroll down here. There's some nice pictures of Trump, him speaking. So going on further, so the legal actions would allow him to sue Zuckerberg, Dorsey, and Pinchot on behalf of a group that claims they have been silenced because of their politics. I'm one of them. I've been heavily shadow banned. I've had videos deleted. I've had, posts, even when I was sharing posts before and I had videos that were going up. I still have the screenshots of this. I had a video about Joe Biden and his ties to the CCP. And when people were sharing it on Facebook, a warning came up saying that it contained, I think it was like nudity and pornographic. And I was like, really? There's a picture of Joe Biden. So again, they've been censoring us every which way. I've got so many friends that have had their entire YouTube channels deleted. They had millions and millions of followers just deleted because they weren't on the right side of politics. So this is something this is very significant because, look, as we talked about before, if we're in World War III, I would define it as an information war. It's information warfare. What are the front lines of the distribution of information? It's big tech. This is where the war takes place. So what it says, though, is that the suit seeks unspecified punitive damages, but Trump said he believed that the companies were potentially liable for trillions of dollars. Rollins launched the event saying there's no topic on which they, the elites, the big firms, the progressives, the office holders, and the bureaucrats, there's no other topic that they're seeing as a bigger obstacle to achieve their ambitions than the First Amendment. So an important point here is that she said that the people could sign on for the lawsuit at takeonbigtech.com. So this is important because I know that many of you've shared in comments, you say, even for sharing videos that I've made, you've been kicked off of Facebook, you've been put into Facebook jail, banned, et cetera, et cetera. So if you personally have been censored on social media, you can join this. This is a class action lawsuit. This is not just Trump. This is on behalf of we the people. So if you go to takeonbigtech.com, which I will show you, which takes you to this website right here. So this is, if you go takeonbigtech.com, it takes you to this website. This is where you can fill out your information. You scroll down and right here, you see here, sign up for updates or share your story about big tech censorship. So here's where you put your information. If you say, let's say you've been banned on Facebook, you've been banned on Twitter, you're kicked off for 30 days, whatever that is, put your story in here, be very detailed with it, put your email, your contact information, submit it, right? I believe you'll get some sort of email response within a certain period. It might take a little bit of time. I imagine they're getting a lot more responses. As of the press conference yesterday, Trump said they've already had thousands and thousands of people that have signed up for this. So it might be a little bit slow of a response, but I highly, highly encourage you to join this because this is we the people taking action together, being led by Trump. Doesn't that define his presidency? It's a man in office representing we the people, and now he's doing it in the courtroom. So that I just want to point that out to you because that's where you can sign up. Again, it's takeonbigtech.com. Okay, a few other things to read here. So this is something that's interesting. This is more of an analysis of the lawsuit. I wanted to read a few of these parts with you. So the hurdle that Trump's legal strategy must overcome if he is to win the First Amendment case that Twitter, Facebook, and Google violated his freedom of speech. So when Trump and his supporters claimed his First Amendment rights had been violated in January by his social media ban, legal experts were quick to point out free speech protections only applied to government censorship and did not extend to private companies. Okay, so this is important. This is framing it. So the First Amendment protection, again, First Amendment, it doesn't apply to private companies. So meaning that, let's just say that I have a newspaper and I want to publish something, or I don't want to publish something. I'm a private company. So I can choose to publish something if I'd like to or not. But because I'm a private business. Now, newspapers may be a little bit different. They might be a little more liable, but let's just say I had a blog, right? Something like that. What they're saying, though, is that because these companies, if they are working on behalf of government, then that basically says that it's the government censoring. And that's what the First Amendment protects us from. The First Amendment protects us from the government censoring us. Okay. So that's what they had said. Basically, that protection did not extend to private companies. 6 months later, on Wednesday morning, his legal team revealed how they planned to redefine how the law should view Facebook, Twitter, and Google. So his lead lawyer is a guy named John P. Cole, who, this guy, if you want to talk about a lawyer with cojones, this guy took on the tobacco industry. This guy represented individuals against the tobacco industry and won. So there's very few industries that are as powerful as, probably say, big tobacco, big pharma, big tech. He's a serious, hard-hitting attorney that's representing President Trump. So John P. Cole said their case would show how big tech was acting as an agent of government. Okay. So, and Pam Bondi said the public hearing showed how members of Congress had tried to coerce the platforms to do their bidding, or at other times had colluded with them to silence conservatives. Trump himself said that platforms could no longer be considered completely private companies when they had been given protections from being sued for content posted by users. Now, something I want to show you here, this is very interesting. This is something that was posted before. Let me see if I can get rid of my picture there for you. There you go. So this is showing a quick series of events here. Now, in July 2019, Google executive Karen Bhatia testified to Congress that the search engine was not biased against conservatives, saying, "We do not utilize blacklists or whitelists in our search results to favor political outcomes, while denying all forms of censorship and political bias." So in that same month, same hearing, Dr. Robert Epstein testified to Congress that he measured bias in Google search results by preserving and analyzing 13,000 election-related searches and the 98,000 web pages linked to those searches. The level of bias, which he said was absent on Bing and Yahoo, which is interesting, the level of bias was enough to convince between 2.6 and 10.4 million undecided voters to vote for Hillary Clinton. So this is, again, in 2019, giving testimony, he's saying that Google's manipulation of search results, that he had researched and studied this, according to him, that Google, their manipulation of search results was enough to convince between 2.5 and 10 million undecided voters to vote for Clinton. Okay, interesting. Now, in August of 2019, Zach Voorhees, who's the Google whistleblower, you've probably heard his name before, he leaked internal documents showing that Google had been secretly acting as a publisher, manually boosting or demoting content while publicly claiming to be a neutral platform. The documents show a clear political bias, censorship, and blacklisting of hundreds of websites and search queries, suppressing conservative viewpoints while promoting others. So this, okay, one of the purposes of getting into lawsuits is discovery, right? So we've seen a lot of people that have been going after big tech, but what this does is that if they're going after from the perspective that big tech is purposefully censoring people of a certain political view and thereby acting on behalf of the government, that they are no longer protected by Section 230. So you can imagine that in this process, they're going to be presenting evidence. The amount of evidence that's come out about the censorship is overwhelming. But up until now, it's come out and nothing happens with it. It's come out, nothing happens with it, right? What's also interesting is that I'm not sure if you recall watching the hearings where you had Dorsey and Zuckerberg, especially testifying, being grilled by Ted Cruz in Senate hearings, being absolutely grilled by these folks. Kennedy was one of the ones that was talking to them. So they were straight up lying under oath. They're lying to Congress. So what happens if it is then proved that they are silencing? What happens? Could they be indicted for lying to Congress? Perhaps, because they did. I mean, we know that they were lying. They're lying through their teeth. It's despicable watching those interviews with them. It's absolutely despicable. You know they're lying. But if there's now a lawsuit, which just so happens to not just be against the platforms and the companies, but also against the CEOs, the ones that were testifying and just saying that it weren't happening. So to Congress, yep. So could that, in fact, raise some issues about them? Were they lying? Will they be in trouble for that? I don't know. We can only hope. So these are some interesting developments. I have here, and this link will be below as well. This is the actual lawsuit itself, if you want to go through and read through it. But something interesting just to kind of highlight in there. This is exactly what the case is built upon, saying that Twitter has increasingly engaged in impermissible censorship resulting from threatened legislative action, a misguided reliance upon Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, and willful participation in joint activity with federal actors. Defendant Twitter's status thus rises beyond that of a private company to that of a state actor. And as such, defendant is constrained by the First Amendment right to free speech in the censorship decisions it makes. So that outlines exactly what Trump is, what he's doing. So as we can see with this, now, I think that probably like you, okay, what happened after November 3rd? What happened with the Supreme Court? I don't have a lot of confidence in the legal system, okay? I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hopeful. I am hopeful because I think that this is where things need to be going, especially if, look, say they get 100,000 people, 200,000, maybe 1 million people end up signing as part of this class action lawsuit. That's going to be difficult to ignore. So while I'm not, expecting this to just turn everything around, I know that there's even discussion saying that this could potentially get Trump reinstated on these social media platforms, get Trump reinstated on Facebook, Twitter. And while I'm hopeful of that, because what they're saying also is that if Trump was then reinstated, everyone who's been banned would most likely be reinstated as well. So think about General Flynn, Sidney Powell, all the different people, the big names that have been kicked off of these social media platforms. So if they were then allowed to go back on, think about the YouTube channels with, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers that got kicked off of YouTube. If they were all allowed to go back on and this set a precedent for that, that could be a significant turn. Because as I mentioned, look, if this is World War III, I believe it is, and if it is primarily an information war, which I believe it is, then this could be very significant. This could be like, taking a major city that's a key critical port, overtaking a key fort of the enemies. That's what this could be potentially. So let's hope and pray that this goes through. Now, in the meantime, I know that a lot of you, if you've been following me on Telegram, on our social media, on July 4th, Jason Miller, a previous staffer that worked with Trump, launched Gettr, right? Gettr. Let me bring up this here. Now, I know there's been a lot of different speculation about Gettr. Can you trust it? I want to share my thoughts about it. Okay, so
George, you had 20. Was it?
Ignore that. So I'll just read through his quick Fox article here, saying that's Jason Miller, right? So he was the communications director for the Trump transition team. So after former Trump, and I believe he might have been the campaign manager in 2016, potentially. But so after former Trump advisor Jason Miller launched his new cancel-free social media app last week, it reached hundreds of thousands of new downloads. The platform is called Gettr, which Miller, the CEO of the company, told Fox News evolved from the idea of getting together. He said, let's get together. We're talking about a sense of community, Miller told Fox News in an exclusive July 1st interview. We think it will ultimately be a global platform, not just for conservatives in the U.S. So what they're saying here is he's had over 1 million people that have signed up for this. Now, something I want to go into quickly about the launch of Gettr. So Gettr was supposed to be launched officially on July 4th. Now, what you had happened was earlier, I think it was May, July 1st, the mainstream media is through Politico and through an author, a journalist, let me mention his name, it's not even worth mentioning, that is consistently tried to be a thorn in the side of the conservative movement. They published all these early articles and it went viral, the fact that there is this platform. So what I think is that you and I weren't supposed to know about it until they officially launched it on July 4th. But the mainstream media caught wind of it and they tried as anything they could to basically throw a wrench in those plans to get as many people to go sign up for it because maybe they're still in the process of making updates, security updates. So that's something I think that they did on purpose to try to sabotage it, which, I mean, that's one thing that gives me confidence because, as I mentioned before, I look at what the mainstream media is focusing on. They'll tell you what they're scared of, right? And this is exactly it. So if you look at how they've covered Gettr, it's insane. All they're talking about is how bad it is. All they're talking about is how it was hacked. But let me remind you, 'cause even for those of you who have even said, "Hey, it was hacked, so there's security issues. I'm not going to be joining Gettr." Well, how many of you still use Amazon, Facebook, Apple, eBay? Right? Tech companies get hacked, right? They suspect it was a Chinese Communist Party that hacked it, which makes me like it even more if it's an enemy of the CCP. But um, look, companies get hacked. Tech companies get hacked. They're claiming there's 90,000 accounts or so that were hacked on Gettr. Well, look at this article. This was from June 11th. Nearly 26 million Amazon, Facebook, Apple, eBay user logins stolen by hackers. Right? These are companies that you have credit card information on there. I didn't put my credit card into Gettr. So again, I'm not that concerned about the hack. It happens. Like even the Epoch Times, they've been hacked. Lots of companies have been hacked. It just happens, especially if they're companies that are doing good and they're targeted. That, like, for instance, if you look at the CCP has an entire wing of their military that's for cyber warfare. So they want to bring down any companies that threaten their global ambitions for a global communist system. So again, for those of you that are worried about the hacking, I would say, look, don't take it as a big thing. I can tell you, and again, this is something that if you want to go check, go to Google or even go to DuckDuckGo and just search for Gettr. Just search for Gettr. All you will see is articles about Gettr hacked, Gettr hacked, Gettr hacked. To me, I would suspect that this is all coordinated in advance, that they're coordinating a hack, and they're going to release information about it to try to scare people away from using it. Right? So if you want to follow me, I'm already on there set up. I'll show you my page. Let's see, bring it up for you. So this is the Man in America page. I can tell you from using it, it's a beautiful app. It's a very nice app. It's very similar to Twitter, but it's very clean, very seamless. A lot of the same things that you're probably used to from using Twitter. There's some things that are I think, a little better about it. You can have longer, I think 777 characters, and I'm not sure what they call them, not called tweets, obviously. But personally, I'm very impressed with it. Now, there's also been the discussion of, is Trump launching his own platform? Leading up to Wednesday, a lot of folks were suspecting that maybe Trump was going to announce a new social media platform. So obviously he didn't. He announced a lawsuit, that's the direction he's going. Do I think that Trump is going to actually launch his own social media? I don't know. I mean, I'm a little bit doubtful. But also, is Trump going to join Gettr? And I know that there's been a lot of people, there's been discussion about that. And here's one thing that I'll say is that, in my opinion, if Trump was going to join Gettr, it would be a suicide mission to join it on week one. Do you know how many users that Trump would bring with him? He had 80, 90 million followers on Twitter, especially with everything else being canceled, him being deplatformed on everywhere else. So again, if Trump was going to join Gettr, which I think there's a good chance that he will, that's just I think he's been waiting for a social media platform to join. He hasn't revealed doing anything with his own social media platform. The only thing that he's talked about was, I think, the actions that he took yesterday with the class action lawsuit. Jason Miller was someone that worked very closely with Trump. So again, I'm just using my logic here, but why would Trump go launch a brand new social media platform when someone that worked closely with him just launched a what I see to be a very, very well designed social media. Again, I just don't think that that's in the cards. And again, if Trump was going to be joining, it would be so dumb for him to be joining on day one because he would probably crash the system. He has to be strategic. Yeah, Cynthia Mullock, you said it exactly. He has to be strategic. So maybe right now he says, I'm not sure. I probably won't join. We'll see. And maybe in a month from now, he comes out and says, okay, I've joined Gettr now. We just don't know. Okay. Now, for anybody that's asking or thinking, again, I will say, and I have to keep repeating this almost every show, the only social media that Trump is currently on is Rumble. Trump does not have accounts on any other social media, period. I've looked into this heavily. He's not on Telegram. He's not on Gettr. He is not on YouTube. He's nowhere. The only active social media account that Trump has is on Gettr. Or sorry, not Gettr, is on Rumble. Okay. So like just be wary of that. Everything else is maybe their placeholders, right? Their placeholders are just posting what a lot of people are, they're using the Trump accounts to post whatever his statements are to communicate, which is good. Like I follow a handful of those Trump social media accounts because they give me updates whenever Trump publishes a new statement. So so Trump is only on Rumble. I hope that he joins Gettr, and I think there's a good chance that he will. But let me show you something about that is in the discussion overall too, is that if you look again at the media's response to this, and okay, one question I always have is who's behind the social media platform, right? Who is funding it, right? So now the mainstream media has already done a great job of trying to dig this up. And what they're saying is that the app is tied to a Bannon allied Chinese billionaire. Now, this gives me even more confidence in the platform. So let me show you this really quickly. What they're saying is that this was a social media, it was a Chinese social media that was linked to Guo Wengguai, a guy named Miles Guo. So Miles Guo is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with G News. He has these other media companies. He's basically an exiled Chinese billionaire that was, the Chinese Communist Party was coming after him. They said it was for, money laundering or theft or something like that, which again, anybody who's an enemy of the Chinese Communist Party, most likely it's because they're doing things that piss off the Chinese Communist Party, right? So usually those people are the people I get along with. Okay. So now again, Miles Guo is very, very closely tied with Steve Bannon. Miles Guo and Steve Bannon, they're the ones, if you recall, are the ones that were pushing for the new, I forget the exact name of it. They're pushing for basically for a new Republic of China. Like were wanting to overthrow the Chinese Communist Party and implement a new democratic system in China. All right. So these people are my friends if they want to do that. Now, there are some older videos surfacing of Miles, talking about the Chinese government, et cetera. Now, again, those could be older videos. They could have been part of something that he was trying to do before. But again, he got kicked out of China. He was ran out of China. He's working closely with Bannon. So is Bannon somebody that I trust? Absolutely. I do trust Bannon. I know, look, it's difficult for us to trust anybody or anything these days, which is good. I'm glad that we've become suspicious. But there are people, that, in my opinion, that have put everything on the line to fight for President Trump, to fight for election integrity, to fight for freedom in America. So again, Steve Bannon, he's someone I trust. Miles Guo, someone who is staunchly anti-CCP and someone who's fighting to get rid of communism in China, that is a complete threat to China. Again, it's someone I trust. So again, look at the headline. Someone made a good point. Okay. The newest MAGA app is tied to a Bannon-allied Chinese billionaire. So what they're making you think, for people, they know that the conservative movement has a great distrust for China. In fact, the whole world has a distrust for China. Okay. So again, they're trying to position this to make you think, wait, Getter's backed by the CCP. Of course, I'm not going to join that. It's all, again, this tells me even more so I should trust this. So these are the reasons why I trust Gettr. These are the reasons why I quickly create an account on there. I'm going to look for red flags. If I sense that there's censoring on there, I'll let you know. So far, even I see Jason Miller himself posting about alternative cures to that disease that's going around, the virus, which those are the things that you get, censored for instantly, talking about those alternative cures for the pandemic. And he's saying, look, it's not going to be censored on here. So all of these things, to me show me that this is an app that I can trust. And I do hope that President Trump joins in. I'd love to have Jason come on for an interview. I'm reaching out to him to try to bring him on for an interview, because anybody that's again, as I mentioned before, this is information warfare right now. And the social media, this is the front line. So anybody that's fighting for the social media, again, this is fantastic. So I'd love to get Jason Miller on here, hopefully for an interview to learn more about Gettr and just expose you to it, and also ask some questions, maybe some uncomfortable questions that let him answer these things. So I think that's, as I told you, this wouldn't be too long of a show, 36 minutes, not too bad. But I think that I covered some important points. And again, getting back to, okay, what do we do? If you've been censored on any social media platforms, go to the website. I'll make sure it's in the description below on how to join the class action lawsuit. I really encourage that. If you are not on Gettr, check it out. Follow me. My handle is Man in America. Check it out. See what you think. It doesn't require your ID. It just requires an email. That's it. Maybe a phone number, perhaps, which these days that's the new norm, to require phone numbers. But it's not saying scan your driver's license like Parler was doing, any of that stuff. So far, my experience has been very good on it. The interface is fantastic, and I'm excited about it. I'm genuinely excited about it, but I'm not going to be leaving their platforms. I'm still going to be active on Telegram. So if you're not already, please follow me on Telegram. I'm also going to be on Safe Chat. These are the usuals. I'm still hanging out on Twitter. Twitter is a great place for me to source information and try to be in the fight over there. But again, there's some exciting things happening. And also, this is just giving me hope. These are all things that give me hope. As much as they want us to think that we're completely, the communist boots coming down on us, we're fighting back. And I think that we're winning a lot of things. So I look forward to seeing you on Gettr. If you follow me on Gettr, send me a message or reply to one of my posts on there. Let me know. Comment. If you are going to follow me, put your comment or put your handle in the comments so I can make sure to go find you and follow you there as well. And thank you, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic, wonderful, amazing weekend. We have so much to be thankful for. We have so much to be thankful for. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. And I will see you next on Tuesday at noon. And I have some exciting announcements that I'll be making next week. Those of you that follow me somewhere else, I've got a different thing I'm working on. I'll see you later tonight. And then for everyone else, next week I'll have some very exciting announcements for you about that. So thank you so much, everyone. I love you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you.